Yeah, I think we should start. There's 26 people. Thank you everybody for joining. It's our first event with our partners. They are bloggers and they also work full time, and we cannot be happier. So I will quickly introduce myself, and then I will give the words to Kelly, Deja, and Pritpal so that they can introduce themselves. So I'm Annie. I work for VCV, and VCV is a company that has this platform for digital recruitment to make it easier to make the recruitment process more efficient for HR managers and recruiters. And my background is mostly in business administration. I graduated from two universities. Basically, I did my bachelor's and then my master's first, and both of them were in business administration. So this is not my first work experience. I used to work in recruitment, and that's why I want to talk about recruitment with you and about candidates and about jobs and everything. So please, Kelly, would you be so kind to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you so much. So my name's Kelly Nash. I currently work full-time in technology as a success manager at Salesforce, which is a global company based in San Francisco here in the States. I have over 10 years of digital marketing experience, and today I'm working mainly with retail and CPG customers. I'm also a writer, a speaker, career advisor, and founder of Lipstick and Ink. So I launched Lipstick and Ink in early 2018, really with the mission to help young women own their power, make their mark so that they can advance and drive impact in the workplace and beyond. So my focuses with Lipstick and Ink are career-specific content on my blog and social media, career advisory services that I offer as it pertains to resumes, cover letters, and LinkedIn profile reviews, as well as events to empower women really to be their best advocate in and outside of work. So from an advisory standpoint, I've been working with women in their 20s and 30s, give or take, with their resumes, their cover letters, and their LinkedIn profiles, especially this year, in how they can stand out in this competitive job market and really showcase their personal brand. So I am super excited to be here, and I just want to thank Annie and the VCV team for really allowing me to be a part of the conversation. So looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Deja, do you want to tell some more about you?
Sure. I'm a young professional based in Atlanta, Georgia. I work full-time as well, work for Warner Media. And Warner Media is comprised of HBO, Adult Swim, Turner Broadcasting, Legacy Brands. So we have a billion fans worldwide, and we serve from sports all the way to entertainment. So I'm happy to be doing that. I work a lot on our digital marketing products for email and advertising. And I sort of transitioned all my skills that I've learned into a career blog and lifestyle blog. And over on my platform, Breakroom Buddha, I talk to young professionals, specifically those who have recently graduated college, and they're looking to transition into the workforce full time. So I was looking to fill a gap that's largely there. No one teaches you how to be a working professional when you're in college. So that's what my platform does. And I speak a lot with those who have just graduated college and those who are looking to transition after they've been in the working world for a little bit. So that's largely what I do on Breakroom Buddha, and a little bit about my background. And I'm happy to be here and share some of my knowledge that I've gathered from the young professionals that I talk to.
Thank you so much. Okay, Pritpal, could you tell some more about you?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Pritpal Kaur, and I'm a life and career coach based in the UK. I'm the fan of Inner Potential, which is focused on empowering women, especially in their professional lives and their personal lives, really becoming leaders in their lives. I've supported women with their career development, career progression, looking at career transitions, but then also their personal development. So what's their personal branding, building their confidence, their self-esteem, and also then looking at how they can move forward with their goals as well. Professionally, my background has covered working for large global organizations, so companies like HSBC, AXA, and Bupa, and I've also worked with not-for-profit organizations. So I hold board positions, both at schools and not-for-profit organizations. As a person, I'm someone who's really passionate about making awareness of equality, especially for women, and also driving more opportunities for women as well. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Okay, so we all know that today's market offers us a lot of opportunities, but also so many challenges because of COVID and because of the economies. Some of the economies, they cannot really, remain the same with all this crisis and everything. So I know that you see candidates and those people who are in need of a new job or a career shift. And I would really like to ask you, what have you noticed, what has changed, in their vision of their future job? So what were the main criteria that the candidates were looking for in their job before, and what has changed? What does it look like now?
Yeah, so certainly from what I've seen with the clients I've been working with before in the past, as traditional career ladder is really important to them. So making that next step up in terms of their career. What's happened now is that things have changed. Careers have become more squiggly. You've got more candidates and clients who are looking at making a transition, or during lockdown, they've come to realize that the role that they were doing wasn't working towards their values. So they're looking to make a change or a shift. Also, previously, benefits used to play really important parts, like gym memberships, car allowance, looking at insurance, and all those perks that come with a role. Now, what lockdown has demonstrated and this whole pandemic is that you can still work from home and you can still, have an active lifestyle without really needing that gym membership. So it's really opened the client's eyes up in terms of what's important to them there. Also, previously, clients would look at roles that would be easy to commute to. So looking at your 9 to 5 office jobs that were easily accessible and quick to get to over public transport. Again, that's changed as well. You've got clients now looking at organizations much further and that offer the opportunity to have virtual remote working, and also even working globally across different locations. So again, yeah, that's changed. But the key thing that I've noticed with my clients is that job security and stability has become very important. So candidates are especially looking for roles where they'll have that, and then because of that, the opportunity to develop in those roles and to really grow.
From my end, I've been seeing a lot of people ask about company culture, especially during the virtual working from home. So they want to be sure that even though they're working from home or they may not be working closely with a team, that they still feel like they're a part of something larger, as well as making an impact. So social impact is very, very big. And a lot of young professionals who are moving into the working world want to make sure that their voices are being heard and that they can collaborate with the teams that they're working with. So that's some of the things that I've been seeing from my end specifically.
Yeah, I think I can agree with both of you on that. I think the work perks, as we like to call them, like the snacks and the gym memberships and the wellness benefits, I think a lot of that has gone out the window, especially as we've been accustomed to being at home now. And I think more and more people are more focused on that job security, as Prithpal mentioned. It's really important that they're getting a job that they can feel secure in, and they're not going to be laid off or furloughed like they may have in the past. And I also think work flexibility is a big thing for a lot of candidates right now, especially with, kids at home potentially, if they're kind of balancing working full time and then also trying to teach their kids while they're at home learning potentially too. So I think having that flexibility and that understanding in their new employer is what a lot of people are, I think, looking for right now. And even better if the company can offer some kind of childcare options. Like, I think that's a huge benefit. And a little bit to what both of you have said, I think those strong company values, that is super, super important to the candidates that I've been speaking with. They want to really feel like they're going to work with a purpose. It's not just a paycheck for them anymore. And they really want to feel like they're contributing to something, for the better good.
Absolutely. I would just add to that, Kelly, that, yeah, it's been the same with the clients I've worked with, that values and ethics have become really important. And then what's the wider impact that the organization they work for is creating? What impact do they have in terms of improving the communities, societies, and the global impact that the organization has? So yeah, absolutely, values has become really important.
Yeah, it's been interesting too, because, we're in a pandemic. So I would have thought, working with my clients, that they would have said, I just need to get the next job. Like, I don't care what it is. I just need the money. Like, and it really has surprised me in the fact that it's not about that. They're really wanting to find a job that they can love and feel secure in and flourish. So I feel like if you're an HR manager or recruiter, I think hitting home those points of we're going to help you grow and help you flourish. This isn't just another paycheck. We want to really be along for the ride in your growth at this company. I think that goes a long, long way.
I'll add one more thing, that organization is key. So people like to make sure they're going into a situation where the company has the goals laid out, their plan, their 30, 60, 90 is laid out. Like they don't want to move into a chaotic situation, especially with what's going on in the world around them.
Yeah, exactly. So what I've also noticed, I've noticed that people, they ask about like flexible hours. They go like, do you mind if I take my kids to, I don't know, whatever it is, kindergarten, extra courses, and then I come back home and then I start working late, but I will make sure that I still have my working hours fulfilled. Yeah, but anyways, this everything makes candidates worry about other things, right? Before they used to care about like one bunch of, criteria that they had, but now they have shifted, they have changed. So since you all have your blogs and you have a lot of, activities in helping candidates, what are those questions that you're asked the most? What makes, those questions so powerful?
Yes, quite a few questions I've had from the clients I've worked with is what are the skills and roles that are most in demand and what's going to be in demand in the future. When they've been going for interviews, the questions they've been asking there is, well, what's this role going to mean for me? And also, what's the wider impact of this organization? So is it an organization that is about, improving equality or having a positive environmental footprint? These are all factors that they're taking into consideration. What I found, especially working with the female clients I worked with, is that they also want to understand during this pandemic how things are going to change for them. What does that mean for them in the corporate lifestyle and in their corporate roles? Does this mean more opportunities, more progression? So those are key areas that they've been really questioning.
Yeah, and can I ask you quickly about the skills? So when they ask you about the skills, do they mean the soft ones or like the hard skills specific for some jobs?
Yeah, so it's been a combination of both. So during lockdown, a lot of people have come to realize that something that they were doing previously is no longer something that they want to do in the future, and they want to make that transition. So for them, it's been a case of, okay, so what is in demand, and then looking at, okay, the soft and hard skills that they need to acquire for that. It's been a combination of both in terms of understanding how they can make that transition.
Oh, wow. Yeah. What are your thoughts, guys?
Same for me in terms of the skills. They want to make sure that their skills are transferable. So how do they morph it? How do they make it sound like, if they're moving from healthcare, how do they make it work for the media industry? As well as resumes in general. Resumes are always a huge question. What needs to be on a resume? Are cover letters needed anymore? How do you land in a bigger company? How do you brand yourself to stand out? Those are all questions that I get asked, as well as the day-to-day operations. So how does it look to work in this field or this industry? Who are the people that I need to be talking to and reaching out to make sure that when I get into this role, I will be able to hit the ground running and do what I need to do in this role and make an impact. So those are some of the questions that I get asked.
Yeah, I'm getting.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kelly.
Oh no, go for it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the cover letter because Deja mentioned whether it's needed or not, and like there is still this butthole between yes and no. What do you usually say?
I've actually had to sit down with a few HR recruiters in my company, and it depends on the role for our company. So if you're going into a role that requires a lot of writing, like PR or communications, then they advise you to have a cover letter. But if it's more of a technical space or a more project manager type based role, then it's not really necessary. And if you write one, make sure that it's one that stands out, because we don't require it. So don't include it if it's not magnificent.
I agree with that too. I've always told my clients, like, if you're working or if you know someone at a company that you're that they're willing to vouch for you. I feel like in those scenarios, if you're networking, a cover letter isn't always needed unless you are completely changing careers, let's say. You know, it's just a matter of sending your resume over. But I think if you're, you know, blankly applying on a job site, obviously, and if it requires a cover letter, definitely put your best foot forward and submit that cover letter. I've always been telling them that too. And to Deja's point, make it stand out. So I always tell my clients, like, include a story or add some personality to your cover letter, because I think a lot of people get stuck in their ways with cover letters. Like, it needs to look a certain way. And it, you know, I think people get really bogged down in like the formality of it, but it's like, I encourage my clients, like, add more stories, add more personality, because that's going to be you're going to be able to connect with whoever's reading it on a more personal level too. And in addition into what questions are my clients asking, you know, I think it's to what Deja said too, how can I stand out and what should I be including on my resume? And I think a lot of people too are getting caught up in the rules. Like, should my resume be only one page? I don't have enough room to fit what I have. And so I've been working with my customers on that specifically, like what's very important and pertinent to the role that you're applying for that you absolutely need to include in this. And I think when they're going in and talking to these companies of the jobs that they're applying for, I think they're mostly interested in, you know, what's the current state of the company right now? Are you requiring employees to go into the office right now? Is your company, you know, purely remote at this time? When will your office be back open if it is closed right now? And what's the onboarding process like right now, especially if you're remote? Because, you know, Deja alluded to this earlier. It's like, what's that 30, 60, 90 plan for them to get onboarded and be successful in their role, especially if they are working remotely, because that's really important for them. It's kind of hard to be on an island, so to speak, when you're starting a new job.
Yeah, and absolutely, just to add to what you said there, Kelly, also how they're going to be interacting with the different teams as well, especially if it's that combination of working from home and working in the office. How's that all going to work, and how's the interactions going to be as well?
Yeah.
Kelly, I think you mentioned the CV thingy, whether it has to be only like a one page or no. So when you get asked, what do you say?
So I tell them if they have like under 8 to 10 years of experience, try to be succinct and get it to one page. So we in the States, I think I've been working more with clients that use just resumes, not CVs. So I know there's like a little bit of a difference there. But if they have over 10 years of experience, I tell them, like, especially if they have a lot of really good experience that is specific to the role that they're applying for, I tell them it's okay to have 2 pages, but definitely try not to exceed 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I work a lot with young professionals, so people who might not have as much as experience. So a one page. I tell them to do one page, but I also tell them to be creative and include links on their resume so it can leak out to their portfolio or their LinkedIn, where they can be a little bit more exhaustive and they can list everything that works for their professional landscape, so that people, whoever is looking at the resume, they know that they have experience and that they can do more than what has been listed on their resume.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Kelly mentioned the onboarding process. So am I right that the onboarding process, it turned out to be a little bit more of a problem rather than an opportunity these days, because companies are big and you cannot really introduce one person to everybody and then get them all acquainted at once? So have you got any idea of how it's happening these days on the market within those either large companies or SMEs, how it works in them?
Yeah. So from what I've seen with the clients I worked with and us in the market as well, is that some of the companies have integrated that meet and greet at the interview stage. So the teams are getting involved in terms of the selection process. And as part of the interview, the candidates are then meeting with the different team members that they'd be working with, even if it's for 10 to 15 minutes, just to get to know them. What that's allowing companies to do is to understand, well, actually, is this the person that's the right fit for us, but also allowing the candidate to understand, is this a team that's the right fit for me as well? So with the onboarding stage, it's almost kind of merging at the interview stage where there's that meet and greet there.
I've seen that as well. A lot of companies now, especially in the media space, they do have like 4 to 5 rounds of interviews, and you do meet with team members, a VP, another executive, and another executive most of the time, and as well as the HR person who is assigned that team. So you do sort of get every stage of the process in a lot of these interview rounds now. And a lot of teams are creating separate teams of people to help with their onboarding. So if you're going into a new team, they may use a project management system like Asana to set up their task or their onboarding task for the new candidates or the new hires. Or if there's a larger company that has a trainee team, they'll assign trainers to the new employers to help them get acquainted with the tools and the company. So that's what I've been seeing on my end.
At VCV, we have our like internal thingy. We call it Hello World. So we record our video CVs kind of where we tell about ourselves, and then we place them next to our name in an Excel spreadsheet where people can, you know, check out each person. And we always write, reach me out if you have a question concerning this, or reach me out if you have a question concerning that. And then there's a link to the video. So it's very convenient. You come to the company, even though we are like an SME, we're only like 40 people, you can still take some time during your orientation week to, you know, take a look at those videos and get to know those people, and they take a look at your video. So you technically might not have booked a meeting, but you already know each other. So it's sweet. So yes, and I've heard a lot about the areas, right, where an employer can invest to have this process done more, you know, more accurate, to have it done better. How do I get a new person involved in a company easier? Is there any like way you've heard they do, or is there any idea that you have, for instance?
Yeah, so one thing that I've seen
To make onboarding a little bit easier?
Yes, like to make it more convenient, to make the new employee feel better and more secure, kind of.
Yeah, so one thing that I've seen with one of my clients is that, so they had an interview a few weeks ago. It was with quite a significant organization. And before the interview stage, the hiring manager actually had a meeting with the candidates to understand more about any questions they had, any queries they had, and actually gave them the opportunity to actually support with onboarding as well. So again, yeah, asking those questions. The opportunity having a pre-interview meeting provided was that they were able to understand different support mechanisms that might be needed, the different employee benefits that might matter to them, their perks, but also gave the hiring manager to get to know the candidate on a personal level, and likewise for the candidate too. And then when it came to the interview, they were more relaxed as well, allowing the candidate to be themselves. So it's been, yeah, having those initial meetings as part of the interview process to understand what will support them in the role.
Yeah, and I think once like the candidate is within the company and they've started the role, I think what I've seen be most successful is having them meet individually with each person on their team so that they can get to know the other people on their team on a more personal level, and then having those one-to-one meetings with their managers weekly. Maybe it's even in a shorter time frame in the beginning, just so that they get comfortable, and then assigning a buddy, you know, so to speak, someone from the team that can really be the go-to person for that new employee, so that they always have someone to turn to if they have questions. And I've seen that work really well, especially in remote working. They just feel like they have someone to turn to in those times of confusion, or if they need help or whatever. So I feel like keeping that open, line of conversation and dialogue is super, super important, especially when we're all remote.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to that, what some companies have been doing is having meetings outside of work meetings. So that social engagement, building that team rapport, and helping the new starter settle in as well, which has been really effective in terms of them getting to know the different team members, but then feeling comfortable as well in their new role.
And what do you think about those, power words that can make a candidate want to apply to to this or that vacancy, because some of them are related to, today's situation, like, I don't know, flexible working hours or whatever it is. Like, what have you seen during your experience of working with candidates?
Yeah, a few words that stand out are things like development, growth, well-being, support, health as well has been quite important. But more than anything, the companies communicating their company values and what they stand for. Again, with clients now starting to look at organizations and what value and purpose they demonstrate, this is becoming really important. The other thing is that clients are also wanting to understand, if I join this organization, what contribution will I be making? So again, also making that quite clear cut in terms of the bigger picture, that this role, whilst doing a specific area of work, will be contributing quite significantly in terms of the business's progress and growth. And the last thing is also then understanding where they can see themselves in the future as well. So what opportunities does this role embody in terms of development and future career progression as well?
So am I right? They are not only searching for like the right position, but they also want to see what's going to be the outcome of their efforts. Is that
Yeah,
important?
so it's very much so understanding what is my work going to mean for this organization, especially if you're looking at startups, SMEs, but even in large organizations that might be going through a transformation, understanding for them, what is this role going to mean in terms of the bigger picture, and how am I adding value to this organization?
Yeah, so it's eventually not about being safe somewhere,
Yeah,
right? It's about
and
also,
especially if someone's making a transition, this is quite important for them to see that, am I going into a role that's truly going to work towards my strengths, my values, and what I truly appreciate in my work as well.
I think if companies take a look at review websites like Glassdoor to see what their current employees are saying, I think that could help them when they're shaping job descriptions or focusing on their company values, if it's listed somewhere on a company blog or in a company website, making sure that they take a look at that and correct anything within their organization, whether it's a startup or a larger organization. I think that'll help them with attracting the new sort of wave of incoming employees. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and just to add to what they just said, is one thing that companies could do a bit more of is maybe asking the candidates who have interviewed, how did you find the interview process? What do you felt went well? What could have been improved? And again, so with that feedback, especially if they've been successful, it's asking what part of the experience did they find especially helpful during the process of selection. And also then asking others as well, because again it's establishing those positive connections and relationships with candidates who weren't successful but still were good quality candidates and may in the future be employees of the organization.
Yeah.
so I think Deja mentioned Glassdoor. It's like a platform where you can find, as far as I know, all of the feedbacks, and you can also find some jobs, if I'm not mistaken. But if we talk about other digital tools, do you guys know anything else that an employer can, pay attention to before changing their attitude towards hiring and so on?
Yeah, there's another one called Blind, I believe, and it's very similar to Glassdoor, where people post their reviews on companies. You can also talk to current employees who work for companies, and I believe they added a function where you could look for jobs as well. So that's another place where people can be looking, as well as LinkedIn. A lot of candidates are on LinkedIn now, so I think it's best to meet candidates where they're looking and where they are. And if you work in sort of a entertainment space or a media space, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, they're all big. So if your company can be on those platforms and have an official handle on one of those platforms, and that's also a good place to find potential candidates.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn's a great place because you can obviously search like specific keywords or hashtags of potential candidates that are maybe talking about your brand that maybe want to be trying to stand out. So it could, just another way to really find your ideal candidate for sure. I definitely agree with that, Deja.
Yeah. There's also a few programs such as Textio and also Know Your Worth, which is a part of Glassdoor, which again provides insights on what the salary ranges are for certain roles, again from information they've gathered from millions of job postings. So again, understanding, are you posting a role that's in line with the market, but then also, are you using the right words to attract the right candidates, which especially Textio can support with as well. Also using programs, possibly something along the lines of Calendly. So what you'll find in some cases that clients will get an interview and it might be a specific date and time. And in one particular example of someone I was working with, they weren't able to make that particular interview. So maybe having an option of different times for them to have the interview could be something to consider and adds that flexibility as well. Especially with candidates who are in a position to make a specific time, they might find it a bit difficult, or they might come across as feeling like they're pushing back because they can't make the time, but having a bit of flexibility with a few different time slots might help to address that.
Yeah, I cannot agree more with this. And also speaking about the hiring process remotely, you said that the employer needs to take a look at those feedbacks on Glassdoor and so on and so forth. But is there anything else an employer can do to, to improve their employer branding or to, be more desired by candidates? Maybe they can invest into something, I don't know, some programs or whatever it is.
Well, for my company, I know a lot of what they've been doing is inviting candidates to get an inside look on what teams are expecting. So they've been hosting weeks and days where they get someone from the tech team and the media team to just talk to candidates about what they look for, what their day-to-days look like, and what are some of the skills that they're looking for to hire new candidates. So that's a good idea. A webinar series, sitting down and talking with current employees, a podcast. A lot of people are hosting podcast series now, or even a written blog. If there's a team, or if a company could put together a team of different writers or PR specialists to host a blog, or where they write daily articles or weekly articles or a newsletter or something that they could send to candidates so that they could stay abreast of what's going on within the company. Those are all good options. Or using the social media platforms that are available, so you already have an audience. You can just create a tweet series, tweet and ask people questions, Instagram lives. So just using any of the platforms that are out there would be beneficial to rebranding or finding a new audience for your brand.
Yeah, and also as part of any job applications that companies have, having a PDF which highlights what the culture is like, what the company ambitions are like, maybe even a blurb from the hiring manager, again, gives a bit of insight in terms of what they're looking for. And that could come in quite nicely with the job description, the requirements of what they're looking for. Quite nice because it gives the candidate the opportunity to understand from a company's perspective what their future vision is, what they're passionate about, and then allows them to see if it's in line with their personal values as well.
I'll add one more thing. So there's a website called Welcome to the Jungle, and it's very nicely laid out. I advise everyone to go and check it out, but it's set up sort of like a blog within itself. So companies make a page, and on that page is tweets that the company has tweeted, things about the CEOs and current employees work for the companies, as well as any jobs that are currently open at the company and what they're looking for. So you could use Welcome to the Jungle as a platform, or you could set up a landing page for your own company that resembles it a little bit to touch on some of the things that candidates might be interested in.
Yeah. And also, as we start going back to, I guess, a bit of normality with any organizations that have especially nice offices and they've made adaptations to the way they're working, even in a little video tour that they can put up as part of the job So it allows candidates to see the great work environment that they'll be working in.
Do you think it's still like needed when people hope to stay home even after the pandemic because they are so used to their routines and they kind of don't want the office to become their normal again?
I actually just saw like a LinkedIn post where someone was asking that, like after the pandemic, like would you prefer going back in the office, staying home, or having a mix of both? And I was looking at the results, and the highest option was a mix of both. Like I think people do want to get back into the office in some capacity just for a sense of normalcy, but I do think people have enjoyed, I'm generalizing, but I would say most people are happy being at home and just being able to focus more on their families during this time too, and having more of that flexibility within their jobs. So I think the workplace is still important, but maybe not as much of an emphasis, especially as people are still going to be wanting to work from home, at least part of the time.
So do you think that with this everything going on, candidates and current employees, they realize that their salaries can change too? And do you think they can change eventually?
I think so. What we're seeing in the market currently is that some of the salary expectations have dropped. That has been as a result of intense competition, candidates looking at new ways of securing roles, and one of the strategies to that is looking at a lower salary. But in terms of if you're looking at a long-term perspective, it's then taking into consideration that if there is a role or a position offered towards the lower end of the salary, could the candidate in a year's time consider going somewhere else? So again, it's sort of finding that fine balance in terms of what is realistic at this point in time, but then also ensuring that you have a competitive salary that will retain the staff and the employees in the future as well.
Yeah, from my end, I would agree. So young professionals are finding that if there are no growth opportunities and the salary is not competitive, they can easily move on to another industry. So I think that's the biggest thing when candidates who are currently moving into the working world, when they're looking at that, they want to make sure that their salary is competitive to what they might get maybe at a startup, even if they are looking at an established company. So yeah, competitive salary is definitely number one. And they want to be treated fairly. So if they see that they could be making higher somewhere else, they will go to the competitor.
Yeah, just to add what Deja said as well. So there was a bit of research that LinkedIn's done as well, and it highlighted that about 38% of clients would be willing to make some slight cuts in their salary as long as it was the right role for them. So this again ties in with the transitions that we're looking at, candidates looking at different roles that meets their values more, but it's not something that they're looking at significant cuts, but slight cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of the clients that I've worked with are really actually looking at this time to do a career change. So I think they're being realistic in the times that we are in a pandemic. There is more increased competition, and they might be completely switching industries or roles. So most of my clients are understanding the fact that their salary is probably going to be lower than it was before, and they're okay with that as long as the job can offer that security that they're looking for and that job flexibility in particular.
And what about the timing? So money changes, but does the time to hire change?
Yeah, so in terms of timings, it's varied. So if it's been a business critical role where the organization has wanted a client in the role as fast as possible, some of the interviews have been happening over a matter of a few days, and they've ended up hiring someone within a week. With organizations where the role isn't so business critical, it's in some cases taken longer, and that's purely because of getting everyone's diaries matching up and ensuring everyone's available for the online interviews. So it's really varied depending on the role, the nature of the organization, and also then the competition in the market as well for those roles.
I've been seeing job postings recently that will post jobs, but then it'll leave a note saying that they're not actively looking to hire. So that is a trend that I'm starting to see a lot of as well.
I know one case of an FMCG company that I was hiring for a leadership program. So they were expecting the program to last, for like 6 months, something like this, because the participants, they were resolving this difficult case that they were given and so on and so forth. So eventually it turned out to be 11 months. So imagine them wanting to, start their career in a company, but, craving for it for 11 months. So in my opinion, I know it's very like subjective, but in my opinion, that can totally ruin the brand loyalty in terms of, employer. Nobody wants to wait for 11 months, especially these days, that they want to gain some security and to know that, tomorrow I wake up and I know that I will still have my job there.
Yeah. Just to add to that, with some organizations that are taking a bit longer, they have then ended up highlighting that, we'll look at a second stage interview week commencing, or a third stage interview a week commencing, 3 weeks after, 4 weeks after. But in some cases, it hasn't been communicated, and that then leaves the candidates wondering what's happening. In some cases, they'll reach out to a recruiter, may not necessarily hear anything. And again, it's then understanding, okay, what's that relationship with the recruitment company and the hiring managers and the company who are hiring, to see, well, how can that be improved as well. But fundamentally, if it is going to take a long time, it's almost setting out that process and setting those expectations. Currently, candidates are already under a lot of pressure to secure in their next roles. So by setting out, will eliminate some of that stress that they're already facing.
Yeah, I think there's been an increase in ghosting. So people, when you reach out, or when a recruiter reaches out to you, you get the ball rolling, but then you may not ever hear anything else back about the position or the company. I think that's definitely shot up during this time. And from my end, I tell my readers to keep pushing so they can reach out to see if they really, really want to focus on that company, reach out to see what's going on. But if they never hear anything back, to just move on to their next company that they want to focus on.
Yeah,
On that
absolutely.
note, I was gonna say, I just think, especially during this time, like we're in a really delicate time where people have lost their jobs, they've been furloughed. It's, it's very challenging. And I think corporations more than ever need to be more understanding and sympathetic of these candidates' situations and be sharing that feedback. Like if they aren't a right fit, like customize your response. Like, these candidates are going above and beyond to apply for these roles and trying to find ways to stand out. And I feel like in my opinion, I think candidate or employees and employers rather, and corporations, companies, like need to be making that extra step as well, and just treating candidates like they're humans, and providing that constructive feedback if they don't get a role. I think it's super important to share the why behind it, so that those candidates can take that constructive feedback, and then in their next interview or next resume or whatever it is, they can improve that and hopefully get a job somewhere else. I think it's super important to have that dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd echo the same thing. Providing that feedback, even if it is, the areas that they didn't perform so well in, what they could improve on, because again, it's all constructive feedback for the candidates to take forward. But then also at the same time, if you look at it from a business perspective, for the hiring manager, it's also a bit of networking. So remember, the clients who would have got to the final stages, they're good quality candidates, and it might be that again, they end up going for an organization that could be a potential organization to partner with or to work alongside with, or a future employee. So again, it's building on those positive interactions, providing that feedback that's going to support the candidates, but then also looking at it the longer term. Is this a valuable personal working relationship to establish and to maintain as well? Yeah, absolutely. So providing that feedback, where they can improve, how they can improve, especially if it's been a long process as well.
Yes, feedback is so important. And you know what? I've heard an experience of a candidate who said that he or she got rejected after the interview. A personal interview was the second stage. So he reached out and said, look, do you mind providing me with feedback? And then the company, it was a huge FMCG company that you all know about, and they said, you know what, we don't provide feedbacks after interviews. And
Wow.
that hit the person so harshly. The person was so disappointed, and he was even sharing his, vision on the situation, saying that I wish I can be employed with their competitors, so that I am in, so that someday I'm in this literal war on, in some shopping center with their sales representative, whatever it is. So he was so upset. I am sure that never ever in his lifetime he's going to apply to that company again. And the thing is that even if it's not you, even if it's your friend or some close person or somebody whom you see as, a role model, if somebody shares this feedback with you, you're never going to apply to that company, and never going to see that employer as attractive again. So it is very important to provide feedback. And sometimes I've heard that those feedbacks are like automated. Some I don't know, digital tools are used for that. So well, VCV is a digital company, right? We have a specific system that would allow you to give a feedback to a candidate in this digital format. But still, have you ever seen a candidate sharing their experience with some digital tools? And if yes, then what were they?
Like in terms of like the responses they get back if they get rejected?
Not only like the hiring process itself and the feedbacks also.
I know within my company, and I've seen this with a few others, that they use a tool called HireVue, and it sort of takes the place of that initial conversation with an HR recruiter. So it would ask simple questions like, what are your salary expectations? What are your skill sets? What makes you the right person for the job? So a lot of candidates, it's a mixed review from what I've heard, that some candidates appreciate it and you're able to retry the questions that have been asked of you. And some candidates don't, because it feels a little unnatural that they're talking directly to the computer instead of talking to an initial HR recruiter who might be able to tell you a little bit more about the team and the work environment and things like that. Especially if the next stage of the interview is talking to the hiring manager or someone on the team. So that's what I've seen from my end.
So I know that Kelly works for a large company. Do you guys use anything like, a digital tool for hiring, or is it done manually by recruiters, by HR?
I mean, I got hired on like 6 years ago, so I can't remember like the exact process, but I do know that once an employee is hired on, they're put onto like an onboarding journey basically. So we have preset emails that go out every number of days once the candidate has been hired and has had their first day, just to like send them emails of communication, like, today's your first day, here's what you should be doing today. And then they'll get another email a couple days later, have you connected with your team and your manager? Just like little reminders and like just a path forward of how they can be successful in their new role for that 30, 60, 90-day plan.
Yeah, some of the trends that we're seeing, especially in the UK, is looking at companies using chatbots and AI again to establish that engagement throughout the whole process, ensuring that the candidate, and then once they've selected for the role, they're constantly kept in touch. It's especially being looked at by tech firms, but not so much by the larger establishments. But again, that's something that would bridge that gap and ensure that there's that strong communication.
Yes. And do you mind if we go through the questions that we have? Because the first one from Amanda, for instance, I think that it fits a lot to what we are discussing right now. So she wants to know how can a company provide an understanding of a corporate culture while hiring remotely? So as Pritpal said before, it is, very likely that an employer would have some PDF file with, a quick description of what's going on, but maybe you have faced something else, or maybe you have some other ideas.
I think fundamentally, the hiring manager asking that direct question of what they're looking for, what's the management style they're looking for, what's the company culture that's going to work for them, how much interaction and engagement would they want in the workplace. Asking those questions directly would be, very beneficial, and something that quite a few of the interviewers have started to do, purely because they know that with the change in the things due to the pandemic, it's quite hard to assess based on market research what's going on. So it's purely asking those questions directly, what's going to work for you.
I think just company branding as a whole is super important. So making sure that you're incorporating your corporate culture and your values on the website, and because your candidates are going to be looking at your website and your social channels if they're doing the research prior to applying. So making sure that's clear in your messaging and just social media, everything else where you have a presence. And I think companies are going to have media and press as well. So making sure that you're bringing up those corporate values and mission statements in when you're speaking about your company, making sure that comes through in when you're getting interviewed potentially too.
Yes, exactly. Can't agree more. Totally. And the thing is that some of us think that working from home makes it easier. We can finally find our work-life balance and so on and so forth. We can be with our kids, with families. But some of the people, they get, so used to this model of being able to work all the time that they lose their work-life balance. So this is quite common. So how to make sure that your colleagues or your employees, they don't lose it being in this remote format?
Boundaries are key. So just speaking from a personal standpoint, like I work at a global tech company, so I'm working with people in Europe, I'm working with people in Japan, and so we all are in different time zones. So like there was a time where I was getting meetings put on my calendar at like 6, 7, 8 a.m. my time, and I was like feeling like I had to join those calls. So I was working at like 7 a.m. and then working through the night for my West Coast clients, right? So I had to really set my boundaries and be like, these are my working hours. And I had to talk to my manager about it, and she encouraged me to decline those meetings. She's like, if those aren't within your working hours, you have my permission to decline. And I think we just have to be more strict in our boundaries, especially when we're working from home, because it's very easy to just get sucked in and roll out of bed and go right into work. So like establishing a morning routine, I think, is also very important too.
Yeah, and I'd
Also,
agree with
taking
Kelly.
your vacation days. Oh,
Yeah. But also at the same time, understanding as a team as well, how can you be fitting in those personal activities? So is it like, as a team, you decide at 6 o'clock, we're going to go and work out, we've committed to this. And again, having those social interactions outside of just the work meetings and making it more personal, that will really support with that.
Yeah. For me, I'd say that our team has done a good job with putting fun things on our calendar. So like team trivias or team lunch. And it's virtual, so you can be at home doing these fun things. It's a good break. And if you have vacation days or times where you can take off, make sure you use it. Even if you're still at home, you don't have to touch your work computer or your work at all, or accept any meetings because you're off the clock. So that's what I would advise to do.
And I really love what Kelly said about a manager giving permission, because I feel like sometimes we really would love to decline a meeting, and we know that it would be fair because it's really not in our, kind of like comfort zone. It's so out of it. But having a manager, so trustworthy next to you, when you can say anything, and when you can say that, look, I have my life as well and I really want to live it, I think that it's so valuable. And if there's a manager in our audience right now who is having some mixed feelings about this, be sure that we appreciate it and we need it sometimes. And even if we don't reach out and say, look, I am tired, I'm losing my work-life balance, sometimes noticing it and reaching out to your employee can make a lot of sense too, in my opinion, because my manager does that all the time. She knows that I work a lot, and then some days she literally comes to me and says, look, you need to stop it right now, go and relax. And I appreciate it because I know that she knows that I do my work on time and everything. So she wants me to stay with the team. She wants me to stay with the company. And at the same time, she doesn't want to, suck all the, juice out of me. She just wants me to be healthy, happy, and, there for my team.
I think there's a general misconception at times that if you're always working, it's good, but it's now the case of working smarter rather than working harder. Yeah, by all means, it's important to work hard, but not to the point that it's going to lead to burnout. So yeah, just being mindful of that.
Yeah, and I think something that my manager has done this year, which I've really appreciated, is like we meet weekly, and instead of just diving right into like my work, we have like a well-being check, and she's like, "How are you doing? Like, are you making sure that you're not working all the time? You know?" And she's making sure that we're having that open dialogue. So yeah, I agree, Annie. Like you have to have that open dialogue with your subordinates, basically, just to increase the well-being aspect of the time that we're in right now too.
I feel like this is happening in Japan now. I've heard that they have switched to 4-week, 4-day working week, and I feel like it may seem a little bit strange and so on, but having more time for yourself can also, benefit your career and companies, results in general. So having more time to relax and, can totally make a person act differently on the workplace and maybe benefit even more.
Yeah,
So
certainly, it's certainly something that New Zealand and even countries like Norway are also exploring as well, having that fine balance between work and life, and then ensuring that then the employees are able to stay productive as possible.
yeah, exactly. So Aya is asking, the work culture worldwide is changing rapidly. What would you say is a new norm now in career building? What is a new norm?
So in terms of, I guess, career development, it's gone from looking at the traditional career ladder and it's turned into more like a squiggly career. So you've got people moving sideways, moving across, changing what they're doing altogether. So it's no longer that step vertical, step upwards, but it is, maybe going somewhere else different altogether that's different.
I'd agree. I think a lot of roles are being created to fit the type of media that we consume, the type of lifestyles that we live. So what you learned in school a year ago, it could be completely different the next year. So a lot of people are creating new roles, exploring new fields and new roles. And I would agree that it keeps doing this. So you're kind of forced to always be learning new skills as well. So if a team or a company can focus on webinars or events that their employees can go to continuously learn new skills, that'd also be very, very helpful in the future.
Yeah, and just to add what Deja has said is that sometimes you can get certain roles where they'll say we specifically want someone from the healthcare sector or specifically want someone from fintech, but it's again for organizations seeing it from a different angle that clients and candidates will be looking at making transitions, so they may not necessarily be from those sectors, but if they've got the attitude, the willingness to learn, and they've been taking the steps, so taking those courses, speaking to others who are doing those roles, that's just as beneficial. And as part of the application process, then asking those questions, if you're looking for a transition, what value do you think you can bring, and what other experience do you have that you think will be beneficial to us as an organization? Again, supporting with those significant number of transitions we're likely to see.
I think consolidating what you both have said, I think it's just a matter of taking charge and owning your own career too, like really taking ownership of it and looking for those opportunities and not waiting for them to come to you too. So I think networking is one of the big to-dos, especially now, like, even in a remote setting, there's still a ton of opportunities where candidates and employees can network internally and externally. There's so many avenues. So I think it's just really taking advantage of what we have access to during this time too.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll add one last thing to that. I'll say that telling your story. So I saw someone post recently that they weren't really able to tell their story and capitalize off of the work that they've done in the past. So I think if candidates could figure out their 30-second elevator pitch, or their one-sheeter in a way, like listing out all the things or hitting on key things that they can do well when they're doing informational interviews or when they're in real interviews. That could be key to them landing roles, or moving across new industries and things like that in the future too.
Exactly. And I also wants to know, what do you think is going to be left after the COVID is over in our corporate cultures?
Yeah, so in terms of corporate culture, it's going to feel less so corporate and more so, again, socially led. What are the values and the benefits that as a company you're bringing to organizations? So, especially within the UK, what you're seeing is that you've got organizations that are starting to work alongside more not-for-profit organizations, working on community initiatives, looking at, okay, what's the environmental footprint going to be? So, looking at the wider, I guess, the wider social issues that impact all of us, and then seeing what they can bring. So one example that I saw recently was that companies, with Christmas now approaching and Black Friday as well, a lot of companies are now encouraging their employees to look at purchasing through Amazon Smile, so they can make purchases, but at the same time it's donated to charities and it's no cost to the employer, no cost to the employee. So looking at initiatives like that which have wider impact, and that will bring value to society as well.
Mm-hmm.
We can see that Kelly's advice to network is working pretty well in our group chat, because Randa sent her LinkedIn link basically. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to connect with you. I'll make sure I do. And also, you're asking the question. Thank you for the question. So Randa wants to know, how are companies showing their empathy for current employees without alienating others? There's a lot of things being said around DEI, working parents, women, and people of color. So candidates want to see action in addition to press releases. How are hiring managers and recruiters now prepared to share these things during the interview process?
Go ahead.
I certainly think there's value in sharing that, purely because if those actions are being taken, it needs to be recognized and acknowledged that the company has taken steps to create positive changes, improving equality, including diversity, and improving those opportunities that are available. So it's definitely worth shouting about that in the interview stage. And again, it's making the candidates, especially BAME candidates and clients, aware that actually this is a role in a company that's suited to me, because they are addressing needs that are important to me.
I was going to say, I think my company has done such a phenomenal job of this. They have really instilled leadership communication with us. So we always know what's top of mind with our leaders. So we have like all hands calls like every week with our leadership team. They're talking about these key issues like diversity and inclusion and the racial injustice, and we had like an LGBTQ session for June. So like they're really instilling like a lot of conversation around these topics, which I've super like appreciated. And they also have started sending out daily emails each day of the week, of the work week, basically giving us updates on where they're at with their corporate values, how are they working towards their missions that they've set forth this year. So I think, again, I think I've talked about this already, but just like communicating and being transparent and being open to having that dialogue with your employees, that's going to make them feel even more valued.
Yeah.
Yes.
Same for me. I agree with what both of you all have said, and my company does similar things. They also have BRGs, or ERGs as they're called in some companies, but they're basically resource groups where people can go and ask the questions that they need to be answered. And those organizations within the company also normally have heads and leaders, so they can take them up to leadership and get the ball rolling and get some steam behind some of the things that the employees want done within the company a little bit faster. And personally, from my end, I've seen corporate social responsibility, our team, beef up a little bit. So they're reaching out to local organizations, adopting new organizations, and really trying to figure out how we can be better as a company in the communities that we sort of live in, and how we can serve them and make an impact on the ground with the employees' help. So.
Yeah. And just from an employee perspective, it gives a real meaning to working for an organization that's doing that. because it's not just then seen as a 9 to 5 job where you're raising the awareness of a product or a service or whatever's been offered by the organization, but you're actually making a meaningful difference to the wider society and also the people who live in that community as well.
Yes. So I think that we're running out of time, and we have, I think, 3 more questions and 1 comment from Nancy. Nancy, thank you so much for your comment. It's always good to know what's happening in other companies of different industries. So I think that we will quickly, within like 2-3 minutes, discuss Amanda's question, and then we would leave the rest of the questions for next time probably. So Amanda wants to know, she says that some companies are introducing online team building games. I know about them, and mixed feelings, all mixed feelings. So she says, or other different kinds of competitions. So do employees need these things while working from home, or it's just something unneeded that everybody thinks is needed?
I think it's nice to have. I don't know if it's necessarily needed, but I would say it just adds, like, again, more personality to your team. Like, for example, my team meets monthly now. We do like little happy hours, and within each happy hour each month, like, one of us has been preparing like a slide deck of like who we are outside of work, which has been kind of cool, because it's like you work with your teammates, but sometimes you don't know them on like a personal level. And for me, like, I don't even work with anyone in my office. Like, I have a team scattered across the United States, so I haven't even met some of my team in person, actually. So I think that's a very nice way to go about it too, just getting to know each other versus just like playing a mindless game. I think it just creates more connection within your team.
Yeah, definitely. And it definitely helps with the team building. Previously, if there was any team building activities, you'd have to take a day out to do that. But again, now you can do it virtually. So, you're enhancing and enriching the employee's life and the experience of working with each other without it taking up too much time either.
I'd say from my perspective, like I mentioned before, our team does virtual team lunches and things like that. So I think it's helpful for you to get to know your team a little bit more. But I do think that it needs to be consistent. So if you're just randomly doing it, then participation will be low. People may not be willing to participate like when they're actually on, or show up when you do schedule them out. So as long as they're consistent, I think they're all right. And if there's no pressure to participate on every single one too, then that could be something that people look at too. But if they're if they're relaxed, like a relaxed type of thing, and they're just fun and it's encouraging people to be their true selves, then I think it's helpful and it's needed.
Totally. And I love that you mentioned consistency. I think that it's always, a good thing to remain consistent. So with that being said, it's been an hour and 10 minutes that we're all together. I think that we really tried to, discuss those things that are important for clients and for candidates today. But most importantly, we all need to, have this idea that we're not alone. We still have people who write blogs like Deja, Kelly, and Pritpal. We have VCB's blog, and we have other bloggers out there who really want to be helpful for you, for candidates, and for clients. So don't lose hope. It is very difficult to be locked down or, seeking for a job during this hard time, but still, we have many volunteers. We have many, people who wish the best, and then there is always this hope that everything will be okay, and it will be someday, because the pandemic cannot be forever. So I am really, really, really grateful because you ladies shared so much today. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, for the things that you shared, for this amazing experience that we had. And I really hope that we can arrange something again together to share some new things with the audience. So if there's somebody who wants to connect with Kelly, Deja, and Pritpal, we have their pages on our Instagram account, and you can make sure that you follow them and follow their blogs. And if there's anything that you want to ask, please reach out to hey@vcb.ai. We will make sure to answer or to provide the contacts of ladies. And yes, if there's anything else to mention or comment, also reach out, and please stay tuned. You are all going to be employed and happy. Have a good evening or day, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. Bye.